Welcome everyone to this is our final IWIN, Illinois Work-Based Learning Innovation Network session for the fall semester here as we all get ready to head on a break, maybe get some relaxation time, time to rest, which would be great. But really excited to have you all here today. My name is Heather Penzak. I'm the Director of Innovation here with Education Systems Center. And what we're going to talk about today is unlocking the power of AI, artificial intelligence, for work-based learning. So we have an expert here with us, Eric Santos, who's going to be talking all about that. And so just want to give a quick kind of background for you all if this is your first time joining an IWIN session. So IWIN is hosted out of the organization Education Systems Center at Northern Illinois University, or Ed Systems. And really what our vision, our big goal is really thinking about and promoting those clear, unambiguous paths when we think about accessing college and career, and really equip our students for meaningful lives and meaningful participation in this global economy that is ever changing, with AI as a very big example of that. And so work-based learning is a key piece of that. Engaging in work-based learning is a really high value moment to understand whether you like something or don't like something. Would you want to be doing this the rest of your life? I very much tell the story often about thinking I was going to be a marine biologist and then getting an internship where I had to interact with fish and realizing that I don't like interacting with fish. That was a really good learning moment for me that wouldn't have happened just within a classroom. And so that can really help with that, unambiguous path, really having a good idea for yourself of what it is you want to do. And so just excited here as always to be engaging in a session of IWIN, which as a part of our work with Ed Systems is this network where people come together from all across the state and nationally to really highlight and explore innovative models. But a lot of this is really building connections among you all. This space of work-based learning tends to be siloed depending on the staffing and capacity of your schools and districts. So it's one of the most impactful things with IWIN is that you all come together and hear from people from all the way at the northern part to the southern part of the state, or people from California or Arizona, New York, right? You can hear from all over. But a lot of what we do is thinking about engaging in conversations that will promote high quality work-based learning, will change access, and really think about those students furthest from opportunity. And then, what are policy changes, support systems? What are those consistent things bubbling up that we as Ed Systems can help advocate for, you and your communities can help advocate for, and just lift up to all our agency partners and other policymakers in the space. I'll give one more plug. We have a conference coming up in February, the Illinois Education and Career Success Network Conference. So communities from all across the state of Illinois who are really intentionally thinking about high quality college and career pathways will come together to explore all kinds of topics within that space. So I'll get a registration link here in the moment as I switch over to sharing the screen with Eric. But before we do that, just wanted for you all to take some time. Again, one of the most exciting pieces about this is you get to engage with people outside of your community. So if you could just share in the chat your name, role, where you're coming from, and then for Eric too, if there's anything kind of top of mind for you when you're thinking about AI and thinking about how it can be used for work-based learning. I know he's got a lot of great things planned for you all here today, but just if you could drop that in the chat, and if he's already answering it through what he's going to share, that's great. If there's anything he wasn't planning to answer and can answer for you in the time we have, that would be great too, just to know what's top of mind for you. But again, really excited to have the Learning Technology Center here today. They're an incredible resource for Illinois generally, right? I know today our topic is focused on AI, but they can do a whole host of other things for your schools and communities. But we'll talk a bit about some fundamentals. We'll talk about how these tools can streamline some of those tasks. I know some people, are feeling anxious sometimes about even engaging with it, but it can really help you if you are the sole work-based learning coordinator at your school, in your community. This really could be a helpful tool for you to start, having a thought partner, getting some materials together. All these things will always have to be refined and talked through with your community partners, but it could really help you with some of that administrative burden. And then also start talking about how this could enrich students and their own experiential learning opportunities. And, I know there's different people thinking about those. There was a person out of Georgia who designed this kind of custom mock interview, I don't know why I can't say words today, mock interview tool that they had students using. So there's a lot of cool things you can do, and just excited to dig in today. But I see lots of people adding in the chat. I'm going to stop my share and turn over to you, Eric.
All right, thank you. And thank you for the introduction and the preface and just kind of looking at the chat, some connections to folks. I thought I saw Oakton College. I don't know if that's Oakton Community College. I used to live across the street from it, if it is. I saw someone from Arizona. I lived in Arizona for 8 years. So I already got some connections with some of you all. With that said, I want to learn more about you specifically related to AI. Just gonna dump in the chat. Please continue introducing yourselves. But I'm also going to throw in the chat just a quick question. What's your experience level using AI? And just do an estimated rating on the scale of 1 to 4, with 4 being like I use it all the time, and 1 meaning I have no experience. And I threw the scale in the chat if you want to see. And so I see those filling up. So thank you for doing that. Just to make the best use of our time, I'll get started. Ignore what it says about Zoom poll. I don't have a Zoom poll for you all. So that will count as the Zoom poll, what's in the chat. All right, so this time we're going to spend here is called Artificial Intelligence to Increase Efficiency. And this is going to be a really fast session where I'm going to be sharing some things, but then I'm going to stop and give you a chance to try them on your own and discuss briefly. And we'll just keep an eye on time and see how that goes. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Eric Santos, and I work for the Learning Technology Center. The Learning Technology Center, we serve Illinois districts and regional offices of education, anything education technology related. We're a program out of the State Board of Education, and really anything that involves computers or technology and educators, we provide that support or training or facilitation and consulting. I work in the Chicagoland region, so we split the state up into 5 regions, and I'm the regional ed tech coordinator for Chicagoland. A little bit about me: I was a middle school st science and STEM teacher for 11 years, a tech coach for 4 years, and now I'm in my fifth role here with the LTC. I'm also an adjunct professor of education, which is where I got my introduction to AI when one of my students was turning in 6 weeks worth of AI generated essays before I caught on. So I had a very organic introduction to what AI is. But for the last 3 years, I've been doing all kinds of AI training with thousands of educators throughout the state of Illinois and beyond, everything from leadership training to how to use it effectively as an educator, how to talk to parents about it, how to get students literate, AI literate, and using it safely, and everything in between. So if anything I share today inspires you to say, hey, we'd like to work with you, I'm happy to connect with you and figure out how to make that happen. All right, I dropped one more question in the chat for you. Thank you all for responding to the first poll. We're all over the place, which is pretty common. Some of us have never touched AI. Some of us are experts and probably could lead this session. I'll try to get something for everyone. Second question I asked, what's something you've used AI for so far in your role? So I'll let you go ahead and answer that. What's something you've used AI for? We'll start with a very brief history of AI just because there's some folks who are brand new to it, and this is always a fun way to do things. Um, Think in your head, what year do you think AI was first invented? What year do you think AI, artificial intelligence, was first invented? If you're feeling brave, go ahead and type it in the chat. Type a number, just a year in the chat that you think AI was invented, and we'll
Eric,
see what
sorry,
you
just a
think.
quick note. I don't know if you're sharing. It's
I
not
am
showing up on my
totally not
end.
sharing. You guys are supposed to be like just guessing at what I'm showing you the entire time. How about now? You guys seeing?
Oh, good. Yep.
Awesome. So this is what you were supposed to be seeing was the map of Illinois, and Chicagoland is where I'm at, and there's me and all my contact information. Sorry guys, going in the wrong Zoom set the wrong tone for me here, so I was all off kilter, but we're good now. We're good. All right. First question for you all. What year do you think artificial intelligence was first created? Type a year in the chat if you aren't currently already typing something. I see already some guesses. 60s, 50s, 70s. No Googling it. You got to answer within the next 10 seconds if you're answering. All right. Well, if you guessed around 1950, you are correct. This is a very brief overview of the history of AI. First mention of AI as an idea was in 1950. First AI program ever written was in 1955. And then things continued from there. In the current times, 2000s, we have AI and things we use every day. Your Roomba scanning your room and planning its path. Your Siri and your Alexa controlling all the things around you. You go watch Netflix or Hulu and it gives you recommendations based on things you just watched. So all a lot of predictive AI and spatial recognition and stuff like that. We're talking AI today because OpenAI is a company that released ChatGPT in 2022. And I bet if I ask everybody here, you'd probably say, yes, we've heard of ChatGPT. Um, 3 years ago, I would have asked you, most of you wouldn't have heard of it. A million people adopted it within 5 days, had signed up. The fastest launch and acceptance of any tech tool in history. Why is ChatGPT different? Well, we can answer that if we know what ChatGPT actually stands for, and that will help us explain how it works. And without Googling it, ask yourself, do you know what it stands for? It is not Great Plagiarism Tool, although it can be used as that, unfortunately. GPT actually stands for three things that help us understand how AI works. Generative is the G. That's the important one because that's what differentiates it from past versions of AI that have been around for decades. Generative means it can create brand new content for you that is unique and doesn't exist anywhere else. P stands for pre-trained. It generates that content based on trillions of pieces of data it's already been fed. So just like you would train a parrot to be able to repeat back words to you, AI tools are trained with everything on the internet, all the websites, all the news stories, all the research, all the social media, videos, images, you name it. And it's then able to imitate what it sees and generate new combinations based on what it's seen. T transformer is just it's not the movie, it's just a word that means the neural network, the brain of the system that's able to synthesize and communicate the way that people are, very similar to how people are. So that's what GPT stands for, and that's important to remember because it's not sentient. It is not, it doesn't know what's going on, it doesn't know anything except what it's been trained on, what you tell it. And when it generates new content, there is no copyright of images, for example. It's just a new image that exists. But it is using other works, sometimes copywritten works, sometimes not. So it is based on knowledge that already exists. So it can seem extremely smart and extremely capable, but it's limited by the amount of data it's been served. I'm going to share a couple tools with you, but I want to give you this background on different tools that we'll talk about. And I put them in three categories, and I like to use a kitchen analogy to talk about them. Large language models, those are like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and Claude. I'm curious, quick type in the chat, yes or no. Who here has ever used Google Gemini before? I'm sure most of you have heard of ChatGPT. I'm curious about Google Gemini because that one's a little less popular, but I'm going to lean on it a little bit more here. Okay, a lot of people are saying yes. That's okay if the answer is no. These tools are like a professional grade kitchen, a large kitchen that has all the commercial appliances, every ingredient you can imagine. You go to this kitchen, you can make up any meal you want. May not always be the specific best tasting meal, but it's got everything you need to create literally anything. There are also some AI platforms out there. You may have heard of some of these. Microsoft Copilot is one, Perplexity is another, Notebook LM is another. These are not quite large language models that are doing all of the thinking and all of the heavy lifting. They're tools that do a specific function, but in the background, it's really one of these large language models doing it. Like Copilot for Microsoft is really most of the work is done by ChatGPT in the background. It's just got a nice interface put on for you. I liken that to going to a decent restaurant, but then finding out that they're just serving up prepackaged Costco meals in the background. But you know what? The ambiance is nice, the feel is nice, and you've got an emotional attachment to it because you and your best friend always go there. So you'll just deal with the fact that it's Costco meals in the background that you could have gone to Costco and gotten yourself right here. Finally, I'll share with you specialized tools. Specialized tools like Magic School, Conmigo, Diffit, Brisk. These are all, I picked these because these are teacher-facing tools, but they're not the only specialized tools. I call them specialized tools because they do one specific task really well. Again, they probably have these large language models or others not listed here doing the work in the background, but they've been developed to do a specific thing. Like Magic School makes like lesson plans and teacher tools. Risk helps you take anything and turn it into like a quiz or an activity. They're very specific things. But you can't ask it to like do your taxes or like help you identify a plant that you see on the ground. It doesn't do all the things that these tools do, so it can't cook anything. It's like going to a pizzeria or going to a Chinese restaurant or a sushi restaurant or whatever. You can't go there and ask for something that's not on the menu. It does one thing and it does it really, really well. You don't have to know a lot to get what you need there. So those are the difference between some of the tools that you'll come across. I tend to stick to teaching people large language models because if you know how to talk to these and use these, they literally can do whatever you need. And sometimes we look to pay for, there's a lot of tools. As soon as AI launched, everybody wants to get their piece of the pie. And there's a lot of tools out there that you might find value in paying for. You might want to go to a fancy pizzeria every so often, but come to find out for what you need, you might be able to just cook up your own pizza in the large language model area. So we'll work there for today. I'll also say in choosing an AI tool, especially when you're doing this for work and especially when you're working with students, which one you choose is pretty important. So, I bet if you all could raise your hands and I asked you who's ever downloaded a new app or who's ever signed up for a new account online, you'd probably all say yes. And when you do, you click on that little button that says accept terms of service and you sign off that you read the 50 pages of size 6 font telling you the terms of service. And I bet you not a single one of you has ever read through all of those. Neither have I. But guess what? They actually kind of do matter, especially when you're dealing with students because it will outline for you what happens when you use that tool with the data you put in there. And I preface this up front before we demonstrate anything because I am going to show you me putting data into a tool and me putting possible student information into a tool. And it's important that you know if you are not paying for a tool, if you are not paying for a product, you are part of the product. And what that means is you're paying them with your data. So when you use ChatGPT, and you are not paying for ChatGPT. You are consenting to allow them to send their data back, your data back to their servers. They are using it to train their model. Other people could potentially get that data out in a response. It is not encrypted, and human reviewers will sometimes see that data because they have to review the outputs that the system is providing in order to check the quality. Now I'm not an expert on all of the terms of service of every tool, but in general, that's how they do it. When you pay for it, you get the uh, added benefit of privacy protection. So if you pay for these tools, or you're a Google district using Gemini, or you're a Microsoft district using Copilot, you get the same protection that you would if you paid for it. And that means, so for example, if I'm a Google district or a Google organization, and check the terms of service because there might be differences if you're on Google for Business or Google for Education. But in general, districts, when they get on to Gemini, if they're a Google district, they do get their data encrypted. It does not get sent back to the servers. It is not reviewed by a human. And so if you're doing anything at work, I usually recommend to people to use the one that your organization has adopted. So if you are a Google organization, use Gemini. Check with your tech folks and your admin and make sure you understand the terms of service that apply to your organization. But generally, I speak 90% of the districts I talk at are Google districts, and so that's why I have this little graphic that you do get that same data protection that you get if you were using Docs or Sheets or Slides, because Google Gemini is one of their core apps now. So you're already signed up for those terms of service. They're exactly the same. Okay. But if you're a Google district and you start using ChatGPT, you don't get those same data protections. So I always start with privacy and safety whenever I talk about AI because that's important. And we'll circle back to more conversations about personal information in a bit. But if you have questions on any of that or anything else, please do pop in the chat and ask away, and I will check in on them and answer as I can. Okay. With that said, now that I have terrified you into going and reading those terms of service, let's talk about what to do once you've read them and signed off on them for realsies. Okay. I'm going to show you, rather than show you, because there's a lot of experienced people in the room, rather than show you like step one, step two of using an AI tool, let me do some workflows with you. Now, I don't work your job, but I did my best to try and put myself in the shoes of someone who does work your job. But you can fill in the blanks with things that'll make sense for you. Let's start with a planning and communications activity that ironically will start with me correcting the misspelling in communications because I'm just into irony like that. There we go. Um, we're going to do a few things with this tool. We're going to draft an email on a sensitive topic. We're going to write a recommendation letter. We're going to plan a presentation, and we're going to role play a job interview. So here's what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to set you guys loose to try it on your own. I'm going to actually let me give you these slides so that you guys can actually be getting to them and you can be clicking links and checking them out. But first, I'll do a demonstration. So I'm going to open Gemini because that's my favorite. You can do the same thing with Claude. You can do the same thing with ChatGPT. I'm going to draft an email on a sensitive topic. So I have a student who's placed in a work-based site. I'm going to end up having to unfortunately inform the parent that they're being let go from that work-based internship that they're doing. And so I'm going to have to draft that email. So write an email to a parent about their child, let's say their teenager being let go from an internship position. Now, if I stop and just say that right now, that's very general and generic, and it's going to just take its best shot at it, but it's not enough. So I tend to use a format called RAFT. RAFT stands for Role, Audience, Format, Topic. Okay. Here's how I'm going to do it to give it a little bit more information. My role is, let's say that I am a Oh, sorry. Let's say that I am a guidance counselor, for example, at a high school. Um, I helped a student get an internship at a local company. Okay, so I've told them my role, my audience. I am writing an email to a parent of that student. All right, so I got that so far. Now, format and topic. Here's what I'm going to give it. The student has had 3 no call, no shows, and is going to be let go. Okay, so that's a little more context, and then that's the topic. And now the format. Write a warm, supportive, collaborative email to this parent explaining the situation and offering next steps. Okay. That's going to get me a lot better response than if I were to just ask it to do this. And if you've ever just dipped your toes into an email, into a program like Gemini or ChatGPT and been not satisfied with the results, using that raft format can get you better results. So I'm going to hit enter. And that was a basic start, but we're going to ramp it up quickly and get a little bit more advanced. So I'm going to give it a second to think. If I click on this thinking button down here, one thing I want you to point out, I want to point out, I'm using the pro version of Gemini. You may not have that access. You may have the fast version. But depending on your organization, if you're paying for an upgraded one, you may be able to tell it, I want a quick answer versus take a few minutes and do a longer answer. Okay. All right. I've got myself a nice template here. What I love that it did that I want to demonstrate is it jumped into canvas mode. And this canvas mode, by the way, it's not the same canvas, the learning management system that some colleges and high schools use, totally different. This is just canvas, meaning it's like a blank canvas to write on. It looks kind of like a doc, doesn't it? ChatGPT has this as well. And it is kind of like a doc because I can actually go right in here, um, and I can type in as if I was using a doc. Okay, update regarding Abigail's internship at, we'll say, Craft. All right, so I can do the editing. The thing I like about Canvas mode is that I can continue to prompt it, and instead of it rewriting, if you've ever used a tool and had it keep prompting it, it keeps adding more to the top, and it gets to be too much. Like you're just scrolling through all of this. I can just tell it shorten it, but keep it still polite and warm. It will not regenerate it all in another whole draft. It will just go right here into this doc and change it immediately so that I can kind of watch it work and I don't have to scroll a whole bunch to find what I need. So that canvas mode is super helpful. And give it a second to do its thing. I probably should have changed it to fast mode so you guys can see it happen faster. Let's do that. There we go. Right before our eyes, it just shortened it right there on the dock. The beautiful thing about the dock is in addition, and it even highlighted where it made changes. In that dock, in addition to copy and pasting somewhere else, I could hit the print button, I could hit the share button and kick it out to a doc. That's the benefit of using Gemini. It's linked into Google Docs. or I can copy and paste it into an email. So if I export to Docs, it immediately opens up a new document and drops that in there. It does something silly, which is it takes my last prompt and makes that the title. So just know that in advance. Um, but there we go. All right. From here, I'm gonna X out of this canvas mode and just show you anytime you're working on anything, you can force it into canvas mode um, by clicking on tools right here and selecting canvas. Okay. And ChatGPT does the exact same thing for you. It's pretty much similar. You're gonna hit let's see, hit the plus button there and you gotta hit more, and you got canvas as the last choice. So that's just a great way to do document editing right there in line. All right, checking the chat. I don't see any questions yet. So I'm going to move on. Let's add a little bit of complexity to it. So now I'm going to write a recommendation letter for this student to get an internship somewhere else. I'll just start a brand new chat because I don't want my so it'll remember things in that same chat. And oftentimes, if I need it to have a blank slate, I'll start a brand new chat because otherwise it might remember this. And I don't want it to reference this student's bad experience in my recommendation letter, right? So I'd start a brand new chat. I'll also say this is specific to ChatGPT. A lot of people don't know this. If you go down to the bottom left, move this out of the way, go to the bottom left and find your little like profile icon. Oh my goodness, what did I click here? There we go. Click it and go to personalization. And Gemini doesn't have this, but ChatGPT does let you personalize. So awesome things that I love is that you can actually change the style of its conversation. So if you want it to be nerdy, you can make it nerdy. If you want it to have cut like I think ChatGPT is a little bit talkative. It would probably say the same about me, but I would say keep answers brief and start with a summary. That's the kind of thing I do in my personal account because it talks too much. I can give it a nickname to call me. I'll be Batman today. I can tell it more about who I am and what I do. And all this is important because now it'll reference all of that every time and you don't have to feed it. So that raft format I told you of what's my role, you can kind of pre-feed it all of that so it's good to go. The other relevant thing and why I brought you here is the memories. You can tell it not to reference its past memories about you, and you can actually go in and manage memories. I don't have any under this account, but it will list all the things it remembers about you on its own, and you can individually delete any one of those. So it will not reference them anymore if you don't want them to. So again, that was only in ChatGPT, and down bottom left, click your profile here and hit personalization. Okay, so let's do a couple other things that are going to show some of the power of these tools. I'm going to go to Gemini and I'm going to say, write a recommendation letter. So I'm giving it a format about this student to get an internship with Deloitte. That's where I did my first internship. So that's where I'm going to throw in there. The reason I'm doing this is I'm going to hit the plus button. I'm going to hit upload files. I'm going to go to my AI uploads folder and I'm going to find, I just happen to have this kid's resume. Where is he? There he is. This Eric Santos kid has his resume here, and we're going to upload it. And so I want to show you that you can give it context in addition to the raft format that I told you. So I'm going to tell it reference his leadership and tech skills. So I don't know if you've ever had to write a recommendation letter, but half the time you end up using a template anyway. But if we're going to do that, why don't we do it and personalize it so that it's got actual information about that person there? So just like that, it didn't write something generic. It actually talked about my background. So it talks about my facilitation experience, coordinating meetings, talking about technology, and it organized it according to what I told it to do. So it's a fantastic way to write contextualize documents. I'm gonna do my favorite trick for getting it to not sound like AI. Rewrite it and don't sound like AI. Okay, that's the shortcut version. There are things you can tell it. You can tell it to vary the sentence structure. You can tell it to use a variety of different sentence formats. You can tell it to use more casual language. You can tell it to write You can just tell it specifically what style you want it to write in, and it'll hopefully make it sound less like AI. You could also feed it more of your, yeah, the M dashes are always a giveaway too. Um, you can always tell it to, uh, you can feed it documents that have your writing style and tell it to match that writing style as well. Okay, so there we go. We've got our recommendation letter. All right, so we've learned Canvas, we've learned how to feed it files. By the way, you don't have to just feed it by hitting click upload. You can screenshot things, you can drag and drop things right on in from another screen. Next, let's create a presentation for a new intern orientation. Um, let's go to a new chat, and I'm going to change things up. This time, I'm going to go to Canvas, and I'm going to make I don't work for Google, I don't get paid by them, but I'm going to make a hard sell on Gemini right now, and just show you this. I'm going to tell it, I have, you know what I'm going to do? I also meant to show you, you can use voice to text, because you know what's really hard? Typing in front of an audience. So I'm going to use the speech to text right here, and I'm going to say, I'm doing a presentation for incoming interns, and it's our new hire orientation. I want to teach them all about workplace safety, ethics, our policy, and our expectations of them. Create a Google Slides presentation I can use for this. Now, I'm going to hit enter, and this is the number one requested feature I hear from teachers all the time, and they finally incorporated it 2 weeks ago. Would I probably give it a lot more detail if I was doing this for realsies? Absolutely. I would feed it our policy. I would feed it the expectations. I would feed it more detail about the company and all the things that they would need to know. But then I would let AI kind of do its thing. That canvas mode I showed you is more than just editing documents. It can create all kinds of multimedia stuff. Um, and it's going to take a second to do that, but we'll give it a minute there. Still getting there. Now, I will say, as it's loading, I will say that it does a pretty good job of getting the general information down. The more detail you give it, the better it will do. I've never made something that I said I can use this as is and I'm done. But the great part is it is in Google Slides, it is in your Drive, and so you can open it up and start doing the editing. If you tell it to add imagery, it will either find images online and then cite them properly, or it will actually use AI to generate its own images and pop them right in, which I found super helpful. Um, you can ask ChatGPT and some other tools to do this as well. I found that they make pretty generic basic slides that just have the step-by-step like bullet points, and that's it. What I recommend as a hack is to use one of the tools to generate an outline for your presentation, which is what they like to do first, usually, if you don't tell them to make slides. Build out your outline and get it just right so you know everything you want on the slides. Then take that outline, copy and paste it in here to Gemini, and tell Gemini to build the slides from your outline. All right, we've got our new hire orientation done. I can preview it right here. I didn't give it any design recommendation, so it chose its own color, but of course I could have loaded our company or our college colors or what have you. But a pretty good starting point, especially considering I didn't tell it what industry or anything else and what to expect. And there's the citations of all the images. So I can download that if I'm using PowerPoint, and I can open it up in PowerPoint, or I can just, if I'm using Google, I can export and kick it right out to slides. All right, questions on any of the things you've seen so far? Put them in the chat if you got them. All right, still kicking those slides out. All right, so last thing I'll share with you with planning and communications. Let's now take a different approach. Let's take a student-based approach. There's other modes that you can put both ChatGPT and Gemini into. And so when I go to a new chat, I can put it into study and learn mode. Study and learn mode is really interesting because it's going to, I made the joke about GPT standing for Great Plagiarism Tool. But that's only how you use it's all based on how you use it. So if you're training students to use it as a more of a work companion than a plagiarizer, then that's how they'll use it. So you can teach them to go into the learn and study mode and say, help me learn about, I don't know, What's something that a student might learn about? I'll tell you something. I'm installing lighting throughout my house, and I sure wish I had done an internship in electrical engineering. Help me learn about circuitry and installing outlets in an old home. I live in Oak Park, a 100-plus-year-old home. It's quite challenging getting the electrical stuff done in here. So here's what it's going to do. It's going to start asking me questions so that I can work with it in this study and learn mode. I'm going to say, one, I'm a novice. Second question, when you say installing outlets, what do you mean? I'm going to say replacing old ones. And then three, finally, what kind of old home are we talking about? Man, we'll say early Romex because I know I got some of that going on. All right, so in this format, we get into this question and answer type of situation. So it's going to walk me through what I need to know. I'll often tell it, give me one step at a time. Um, let's say this, ask me small questions one at a time. So kind of coax it into making it easier for me. Okay, when you look at an outline in your mind, you know which color wire is usually the hot conductor in early Romex. I'm going to say black. So it's you see how it's talking to me. It's kind of like a teacher or a tutor working me through this, right? I can do this a lot of different ways. I could also I can choose to put it in study and learn mode, or if I just want to prompt it, I can say I am interviewing for a role as a let's do something fun as a drone operator doing tower inspections. Help, let's say, play the role of an interviewer and let's role play my interview. So that's another kind of study and learn approach that you can take. Again, I can go into tools and put it into the guided learning mode that Gemini has, or I can just prompt it in such a way that it does that. And here we go. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for coming in today. Blah, 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 blah. So I can go from there, and then I can even, because I have the speech to text, I can even simulate actually saying the thing instead of typing it all out. And I can just speak my responses and I can role play that interview. One of the things that I've done before too is I've had it actually like I've created a rubric of like grading my responses and I've told it at the end, give me feedback on this rubric and how I did. And so I would just upload that right in and then I would let it know when I was done with the interview and it would give me my feedback. You could also do it like per response. Like after I would prompt it with something like after every response that I give me your score and a little bit of feedback on how I did and then ask me the next question. So it's all about how you train the tool. You may find, I have found mixed results in the guided and learning mode doing that way. Sometimes it goes better, sometimes it's not really a much difference. But I just want to make you aware of those differences that are there. Okay, so I'm just looking at the time, and what I'm going to tell you is I'm going to give you homework and I'm going to give you these slides. Um, After each one of these tasks, there is another slide that has prompts that you can try. They're literally copy paste prompts that where if you're like, oh man, I remember everything he said, but where do I start? It's a blank canvas and that could be challenging. Literally copy and paste one of these, put it in the tool, and see the responses that you get out of it. So they're ready made and you can just give them a try to practice on your own. Okay, last one. I almost forgot. Researching a job field. This is super important because I'm going to show you a component of each of these. Let's say I'm doing some job research, and Heather, it was so perfect that you mentioned the marine biologist thing. My daughter's a senior applying to colleges, and she wants to go into culinary arts, and I've been telling her for years she needs to be a marine biologist. But you know what? We took her to Disney World and did the dolphin or Universal Studios, wherever it is, and did the dolphin experience. She didn't fall in, she liked it, but she didn't fall in love with the career. So I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna let it go, guys. I'm gonna let it go. But I'm gonna do some research before I do. Under Gemini's tools, there's a tool called Deep Research. And if you're not paying for it, you might get like 3 or 4 opportunities to do it per month, just as an FYI. Each tool has their own limit. So like ChatGPT has a limit. I definitely don't have the pro version of that here. Yeah, so it says 5 left per month. And whenever you start your first one, that's when you've got a reset is a month from that point. Okay, I reset tomorrow. How about that? Um, so with these, you're going to click deep research and you're going to actually have it go into a ton of detail about a topic. So the topic I will give it is I'm researching the career prospects for two different, very different fields for someone who's going into college, marine biologist and culinary arts expert. I would like you to do a lot of research into which of those is going to be more employable long term, which is going to cause her to accumulate more college debt, and which of those is going to be more fulfilling over time, and what the job outlook is for the next 25 years. Okay, I just came up with those off the top of my head. Obviously, you can give it your own parameters. The interesting thing is you can try to connect to like outside resources. So if you have some already, you can use them, but it will search the web and it will find the great thing about research mode is it will find scholarly sources and it will try to stick to more academic sources. The other thing it will do is it won't just jump in and try to give you an answer like it often does. It'll do what it's doing here. It'll ask you follow-up questions. And these are great ones. Geographic focus, career goals. Yep. So I'm going to say one, we'll say Chicago area. Two, we'll say 4-year degrees. Three, no specifics. Now, even before it does the research, it's going to do one more step. It's going to put together a research plan for me. Well, actually, it did jump into the research. How about that? I guess it had enough. Usually, what it'll do, and what I found Gemini does often, is it'll do an intermediary step where it puts together a research plan and it tells you like 10 things it's going to look for and the approach it's going to take and the report it'll create, and you sign off on that. So you can tell it, and you can even go in and edit, like, no, I don't want you to focus on that, or yes, I want you to go to these places and focus on this. And so you can actually tailor the resources a little bit better and the research a little bit better. So that's going to take a minute to run. So I'm going to run it in Gemini too, and hopefully my computer doesn't just melt down. Um, and I'll run the same thing here in Gemini and see what I get. And in a couple minutes, we'll come back and we'll just see the results of that because it's pretty interesting stuff. I've used this in preparing for presentations as well. I like to like present things that are research based, and I had to get in front of parents and talk about AI and their teens and mental health. And so I had it create like all these reports and reference all these great research studies that I then went back and read. So I knew that I was speaking intelligently from like current research on that. That said, here's Gemini did what I asked, which is putting together a research plan. I love that. So it tells me the websites it's going to try and look up, the types of things it's going to kind of look for. And if I sign off on all of this and I think this is good, then I'm going to hit start research. If I don't, I can hit edit plan and then start the research after I've edited. I'll go ahead and start the research. And I'll let these two compete for my love right now for the next couple of minutes while I go over here back to my presentation. So, what did we just demonstrate in that? We learned about ChatGPT, Google Gemini. Ooh, and I forgot Perplexity. So let's go to Perplexity. You may have or may not have heard of that one. I'll link it for you here. Perplexity is another great AI platform that uses multiple large language models in the background, and it's it's their statement, right? That what they claim is they use more scholarly sources, they have less mistakes and hallucinations, as they call them, and they will cite all their sources for you really well. So I'm going to copy that same exact prompt that I just put into here to Gemini. I'm going to copy, paste it in. It's not going to take quite as long. Um, do keep in mind, Perplexity is not a tool that I'm paying for, so I'm not going to put any personally identifiable information in there. Um, and so it gives me a much faster response than the deep research. Probably not as deep research, but what I love is that it referenced its sources here. So I can look and see where it's getting its info. The BLS, that's reputable. Maybe Indeed, okay, not bad. I don't know what Zippia Inc. is. Maybe you guys know. I don't know if that's reputable or not, so I may dig into that one a bit. But you can see that it's got me like a cited set of sources here. Okay. And I'm not going to read this in front of you because I don't want us to find out that marine biologist is the better choice. Okay. We're not going to go there. We're not going there. So yeah, so Perplexity is another great tool that you can use when you need research and you need citations, but you need it kind of quick. All right, so we learned those three tools. We learned how to draft text in different formats, different voices. We can even put it in different languages. I almost forgot. Let's jump back in. It's going to do its thing and run while I leave it alone there. But if I go over here to my guidance counselor email that I had to write, I can just tell it, translate to Spanish, hit enter, and it's going to translate that thing for me. And you still want to get a native speaker of the language to read it as you always would, right? But a lot of teachers I've talked to have said it does a better job of translating than past tools because it's a language model. It learns language and it understands like expressions and idioms and phrases. And so just like that, I've got the same thing in Spanish and I can download that separately and then I can put in whatever other language I want as well. All right, so you got the translation. Um, we learned how to put different the models into different modes, our deep thinking mode, Canvas, study and learn, deep research. I've showed you how to upload files, photos, all that kind of stuff. And we did deep research. We haven't done AI Studio Live. I think that one's easier to do when we're in person, so I'm going to skip that one for now. And we learned perplexity and deep research. Okay, let's skip ahead a bit. I want to show another advanced use, and we'll come back to the research in a second. So, analyzing data. This is a fun one. So, I'm going to give you guys are welcome to try this on your own if you'd like. I'll give you the link. Um, this is just made up data. I actually had Gemini generate a bunch of data for me. Um, and I decided instead of, since I think it would be more applicable to you guys, instead of financial data, what I did instead was I gave it data that is actually student like a student interest survey. So we're going to pretend in this case that students did a survey on what their career interests are. And I got captured information. I'll pull it up here on the screen for you. Captured information like I've got their GPA, I've got their grade level, I've got their career cluster they're interested in, and a bunch of other information about them here. And I got a bunch of records here. But I want to do some analysis and, sheets in Excel, it can be overwhelming figuring out how to make those graphs and how to make the pivot tables and all that. So let me show you how I might do that. I'm just going to take this data and I'm going to say, what trends do you see? What are the most common skills? I'm going to have it group students into categories. So let's start doing some of this. So I'm going to open Gemini. I'm going to go to a new chat. One thing I want to show you with data is I'm going to hit the plus button and upload. I can do a couple things. I can connect my drive and go straight to that file um, right now. That's in often the easiest way. I have found sometimes it struggles with spreadsheet data, and so I want to show you that any spreadsheet you have, you can go file, download PDF, and if you save it as a PDF file, you might know this as just being like a plain text file or like, an uneditable document, but it will totally understand that as a spreadsheet if you upload it into Gemini. So I can go to plus upload and I can just upload that as a PDF and it'll take the data and treat it just the same because it can see it in the rows and columns. You can copy and paste the data in. Honestly, if it fits on your screen, you could even just screenshot and paste it right on in. So however you get it in, it's going to be the same. The screenshot wouldn't work in this case because the things go off the screen. I'd have to do a lot of screenshots. But if I upload that now, I'm going to just tell it, I'm going to give it a little context. This is student interest data for students who completed a survey on where they'd like to work. I need you to analyze it. Now, if I just stop there, it's going to do all kinds of random analysis I didn't ask for. So I'm going to ask it these things. I'm going to ask it, what trends do you see? What else did I say? What are the most common skills? So let's let it analyze the data for me and tell me what I see. Now, I will also say, because sometimes tools make mistakes, let's always go and double check what we're finding in the data. But this can be a fast way to get a synthesis of what it sees in there. I'm going to switch it to fast mode so we can get quicker responses. I love that if I click on this little thinking drop down, it'll actually show me what it's doing. It'll speak in the first person and tell me what it's thinking through and what it's actually doing. so that I'm not just watching a spinning wheel wondering what's taking so long. The data analysis piece does take sometimes a few extra seconds, so we'll give it a second there. This is a great time to check back in on our research. Still working. Okay, we'll come back to
Random
it.
question for you, Eric. Could you ever,
Yeah,
like, if a school was using a Zello or a U Science or something to get that student interest, could you pull that directly into here, or would you probably have to download it and then?
I would probably download it. Like I have definitely fed these tools a website and let it go to that site and tell me what it got there, and that has worked. But if anything you could download, I think I trust a little bit better. So great question. And I'll show another tool quickly that you can use for that kind of thing too. All right, so here we go. We got a little response. It gave me some summaries. This was kind of a general question. What are the trends you see? What are the common skills? And it's giving me a quick synthesis of my data. Awesome. I want to get a little more concrete. So I'm going to tell it this. I'm going to tell it create a bar chart and a table showing the distribution of grade levels. So I'm going to use my voice to text. I'll create a bar chart and a table that show me the distribution of grade levels amongst these students. And then I want you to also show me a chart or visual that demonstrates their GPA across this group. All right, let's see what it does, and hopefully it does what I'm asking it to. It's always a challenge when you demonstrate live in front of people how it's going to behave. It looks like it's going to do what I'm asking. So I mentioned Canvas earlier, and I mentioned that it can do multimedia stuff. So it can actually create graphs and charts and infographics for you. Again, depending if you have the professional or paid version of the tool or not, um, it may or may not limit how many times you can do that. So just an FYI. And depending on if you're using ChatGPT or Gemini, that might be slightly different. So just know that in advance. I'm rather than wait for that little thing to spin and finish, I'll just show you some places. Oh, it finished right as I was about to bail on it. So it just created that chart for me right there based on the number of students that I had. Um, Again, this is why this kind of thing is good for like a quick summary. I don't know that there's a grade 12.5 or a grade or oh number of students. There we go. I don't know if you can have 17.5 students. So like the way that it made this doesn't make logical sense, but the numbers are probably, accurate or close to it. And then we've got a distribution of GPAs. So again, a quick snapshot. There we go. And it even made it in a table for me as well if I'd rather just have that summary in a table. So you can use it for data analysis. You can use it to produce data. You can use it to take that data and create visuals for you. And of course, I could jump into this and tell it, hey, I need you to update that, make the y-axis into whole numbers because we can't have fractions of a student, and it'll regenerate it for you. Yeah. All right. So, those are a couple of things I just wanted to show with data. You can continue doing all this kind of stuff. The last thing I'll show is creating an infographic. Um, I'm going to say let's use the voice chat. Create an infographic that summarizes as much data as possible from this sheet. All right, I'm going to give it very generic instructions and let it go do its thing, and it's going to start creating that infographic. Let's multitask. Let's go back to our research from earlier, and let's see how that research turned out. Um, where is our research? There we go. All right, so here's the research report. I'm more of a fan of Gemini's infographics to answer the question. And I was about to say I'm more of a fan of their research reports as well. I like the way it's written. I like the way it frames. I like the last upgrade to Gemini 3.0. I think it does a better job of organizing the information and presenting it. It also, at the end of each one of these paragraphs, it shows you where it got the research for that paragraph. So there are inline citations with links to find that. And I have found, like, even when I did that research I told you all earlier about teens and mental health and AI, there were times where I saw something it said and I went to that site and I was like, yeah, but that's kind of out of context, or I don't really love that fact being thrown in here from this site. And I ended up taking that out of the report. So you can do your research and do your like work backwards and figure out how it built all of this. But it creates, comparative charts, which I'm just not going to read. Not going to read. Um, she's an excellent cook, by the way. I just want to say she has her own pastry business. Super proud of her. Someone else will take care of the dolphins. It'll be fine. Um, but yeah, I've got this whole report to run off of, and then at the bottom it lists all the sources that it used. What's interesting is it'll also use sources it read but didn't end up using in the report, which I find to be kind of interesting as well. And it even has thoughts where it like kind of summarizes how it went about this research. So it's not a total black box where you wonder how did this happen. So that was just a quick peek at the research. You can share and export it. I've actually done this research and then used it to help me build slides around the research. As always, though, you want to know what you're talking about, right? So read the reports that it's based on. Make sure you can fact check everything that's in there because you're ultimately responsible for what you put in front of people. All right, let's peek back in, double dipping into our infographic. Um, so it actually codes all this in Python. Really cool stuff. If you put it in canvas mode before asking it to build all of this, you can also tell it to make an interactive infographic. So let me show you one that I've made before. This was one where I did an example of how to do like financial analysis with it. This was probably not a good example. Let me find a different one. There we go. Like it will sometimes make them interactive for you. There we go, where you can click it and it'll like, this was not my financial data, by the way. This was just sample data. But like it's all interactive and I can click right on it. Now, the tough part, I know you're going to say, how do I get this out of Gemini? It is all code, but it's all coded in HTML, and it's coded in like web languages. So you can like if you have a website builder like Google Sites or Canva, you can copy and paste it right into there and it'll create a website. That's a longer, more deeper cut of technology right there, but it can be done. Otherwise, you can just screenshot what's in there as well. All right, so those were two workflows. We're almost at one, and I didn't get to the third one. But what I have in here is prompts that you can use on your own to try this. I've given you the data file. They're all linked here, so you can upload them and try letting it do some of those things. Um, and there's a third set of tasks here that I think are you brought if you followed along with what I did the first two times, a lot of this is very similar. Um, and so that's, I think, it. I want to make sure I respect your guys' time. The tools that we learned were ChatGPT, Gemini, and Perplexity. The last thing I'll say without demonstrating is both ChatGPT and Gemini have these things called gems. Gemini calls them gems. ChatGPT calls them custom GPTs. You got to pay for them in ChatGPT, but they're free in Gemini. And they let you create a recurring like chat where all you do is tell it a thing and it produces that thing for you every time. So you train that gem to say, every time I give you this spreadsheet, produce this report for me. And then you don't have to tell it over and over. You just give it the spreadsheet and it produces the report. Um, and so that is like something to explore on your own and a little extra homework that you can do, or maybe a future session can get into. I want to take 60 seconds to just make sure I talk about these, which I think I peppered into my conversation, but I gotta mention them before we go. Four limitations. Remember, AI will make mistakes. They call them hallucinations. It will make things up or get things wrong. So please fact check everything that you use or put in front of people, and please share that with students before they use it. Secondly, remember ethical and appropriate use. Do not put personally identifiable information in. Even if I was paying for it or I was a Google school, I probably would have scrubbed student names and IDs and put some unique identifier in to identify each of them before I fed it into the tool, just because I want to make sure I'm on the right side of laws and the right side of ethics. And be transparent about your use of AI tools with others. Keep in mind that AI is trained on everything out there, and that includes some biased information, really, if you think about it. Can you ever fully remove bias from anything? But the results reflect us as a society, and it doesn't invent prejudice or bias, but it can produce results that are somewhat biased based on the data it's been trained on. There's a lot of great articles there for you guys to read about that. And there is a resource consumption challenge. AIs AI uses up water and it uses up electricity, and there's some sources there you can read on that. So just be mindful about your use of it and the resource demands that it puts on our Earth. With that said, we do have the LTC has an AI web virtual conference coming up, and I would love for you all to join that. So that is linked there, and I'll drop everything you need in the chat. My contact info, these slides, and a link to that conference is in the chat. Thank you all for joining me today. And if I can help in any way or I can support, consult with you, reach out to me. And I'm sure Heather will help send out the slides via email for this as well. Thank you all for having me.
Yes, thank you, Eric. This was so much fun. There were lots of things I learned that I had no idea about, and hope you all had something that you can take away. And again, please reach out to Eric and their team at Learning Technology Center. They're incredible. They can do all kinds of things for your schools, your communities, even beyond AI. And I will send all this out, the recording, the presentation, all these different links and pieces. And I will say, Eric, not to, again, the whole marine biology culinary, but I did a lot of culinary prep when I was interning at the Shed Aquarium. I had to chop up frozen fish for other fish. There was a whole culinary aspect. So, can combine both of the loves. But no, just really honestly, thank you so much for this. Just appreciate all your thoughtfulness to this, really making it focused on work-based learning, and also things that are just tangible and straightforward and really helpful for all of us in our role. So I'll leave it for a bit if there's other questions, but otherwise just thank you all and thank you again so much to Eric. I feel like we need to be in person for like a real round of applause.
I appreciate everyone. Thanks.